like to call the meeting back into session. And the first thing I'd like to do is review IEC pronouncements of 417. Did everyone get the summary that I sent out?
I did.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Did any of those, Karen, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay.
That's great. Karen, did you happen to get a chance to look at the summary of the IEC
Yes, we
meeting
were
that I
looking
sent
at
you?
that. Yes.
Yeah. Did you have any concerns or comments about that? And can we kind of open to discussion here among anyone on the board or on the board support with the county? Does anyone have any concerns or issues? What's been said here?
Well, we probably have, I mean, you could start with travel board. We're still with like a little bit more clarification of what that's going to really be. I've had one can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Like I've had one that's just was sent in on Friday, and I'm going to call them and try to get them. I don't know if they grabbed the wrong app, but I think that they need to be encouraged to get something by mail. It looks like they should be able to. And then also we're seeing that the teleconferencing or video conferencing. So it sounds like we can get on the phone, or the travel board, 2 people, get on the phone with that person and get them to vote. They write it down. They don't have time. And that's what we think it is. They have to do the ADS-8 envelope, but it would, you would signify on there that they couldn't sign. We're all on board with that?
Sorry, you broke up a bit there.
So are we all on board with that's what we're able to do?
Yeah, what's section?
Under travel board, traveling board?
What's the section number?
It doesn't have, it's the heading says traveling board. It's your summary.
I think it's the 2-page summary.
Okay. That's actually not the summary. That is the output from their meeting. I have a 1-page summary I sent out, and it lists each section. And section 1 is the expiration date. Section 2, it talks about selection of precinct election officers, absentee board members, or watchers.
Oh, here's his.
Section 3.
I have it now. Okay,
all
sorry.
school buildings have to be made, fire stations and other public buildings have to be made available if chosen as designated polling locations. Section 4, training guidelines shall be provided, including CDC guidelines for everyone.
Yeah.
For the handling of mail and the proper use of personal protective equipment. Any deviation from the prescribed guidelines to conduct elections in the county must be approved by the county's health officer, which I guess is Penny. Section 5, political subdivisions do not have home rules, so we must follow all election requirements. June 2nd primary election must be executed strictly in accordance with IC3 or any other relevant statutes. Section 6, absentee ballots may be cast in person only between Tuesday, May 26th and noon Monday, June 1st. I'm assuming we're not voting on Sunday, so that leaves 5.5 voting days for early voting.
In person.
Section 7, the election board can establish 1 absentee ballot counting additional to the one we have because we have 100,000 registered voters, and you're allowed 1 per 50,000. So we could have 2 absentee ballot counting areas. And absentee mail applications have to be in by 5/21. Any that were disqualified for a lack of stated reason of why they were voting absentee, they're now to be considered valid. Section 8, A and B both relate to vote center counties, so they don't relate to us at this time. Section C of Section 8, location of polling place can only be changed in accordance with IC 3183.2. We have to notify voters and notify election division in writing that we're doing that. Additional absentee early in-person voting locations can be established by unanimous vote of the election board.
This is the IEC order.
And Section 9, we can notify voters that the absentee ballot application or absentee ballot security envelope is defective and allow them to fix it. They don't get disqualified for that. So there's a lot more flexibility here for the voters, but there's also a potential for a lot more work on us. The first big issue that Karen raised in her concerns was promoting the voting by mail. And that is something the state would like to do as well. We did a couple of us received a promotion from a company up in Indianapolis that is doing this for Marion County right now. And they have they've provided a voter home scale plan that they are offering to do for us. We didn't get a price or anything, but they did offer to set up and establish a system for the distribution of all invitations to submit for a ballot. They would track all of those going out to 100,000 or so Monroe County voters. They would track the return, and then they would track the submission of ballots to those people and their return. This is something, as I said, they're doing for Monroe County. I'm sorry, for Marion County. And Karen, I think one of the concerns you had was that we might have difficulty in reaching 100,000 people in the amount of time we have left.
Yes, just from a manpower issue, I think is the concern.
Right. I checked to see what the volunteer status was on the Republican side last night, and currently it's 0.
0 available to help?
0. Anyone who indicated interest is no longer indicating interest.
Okay. Okay.
I got that from Pat. And I don't know what it is on the Democrat side.
So just to be clear for me, Sherry, Marion County is sending out applications to vote by mail to their registered voter list?
Yes,
That's
to
correct.
Okay,
everyone.
thank you. I just didn't know that, so that's
Yeah.
fine. Okay.
This is Nicole, and so let me be sure that I'm clear. This is a nonpartisan organization that would invoice us to do that. They could give us a quote on what that means, and they are not affiliated with any particular party. So it would be a nonpartisan effort that should not be contested by either party.
Correct. They are a nonpartisan business. And
I have a
apparently
question.
they're experienced at doing mass mailings and tracking the results. The company's name is Quadient, Quadient.
Al,
Yes,
When we send out an application to a voter that has requested it, it is logged into SVRS
No, not an application. Only if they return it back.
if they return it back. But we track all that through SVRS. How would this
Okay.
information be put into SVRS?
I can't tell you that. That's something we would have to talk to them about. I wanted to ask Nicole, is this something that needs to be bid?
I think it-
So, my immediate response would be that the best thing would be to get a quote, because if we have a contract, we of course would have to appear before the commissioners, because only the commissioners can sign a contract. If we are invoiced, it's a bill. And so I didn't know, prior to receiving this information in the mail, I didn't know anything about this particular company. I don't know how, I mean, I know what happened in Marion County, but I don't know how this particular vendor over any other vendor would have been selected. And I'm happy to reach out to the Marion County clerk to try and get some more information. I just want to be sure that whatever we choose, of course, is nonpartisan, and both parties are on board, because ultimately we could have to answer to the Indiana Election Commission for the choices we made.
You're saying they would offer to do the initial mailing to all registered voters in Monroe County, and
Yes,
then that application would come back to Election Central to prepare the ballots. Is that the process? Is that the, yes, Karen?
I've only had a chance to
yes,
skim through all their stuff. but-
Karen is saying she can handle that workload. It's doing the initial mailing.
right. We could probably ask them to do any part of that process. So if we just wanted them to do the mailing, I'm sure they would be willing to give us a quote on that.
Is that what would help? If we're going to do that.
So from my perspective, if it's
To do the initial mailing.
nonpartisan.
Yeah.
If what you're saying, Mr. President, is that we have no Republican people on board to assist, and this would be the most bipartisan way to get done what we need done, I certainly think it's something to be strongly considered, because we have to have that the whole way through if we don't want to have to answer for it on the other side.
We certainly need to do it on a timely basis, so it's not the last minute, so that we don't get into the timeline issues that we saw in Wisconsin.
And I'd also like to know if they can manage to screen out the people who've already done this. I mean, I don't know where we are now, but we've sent out already, about 2,000 ballot applications?
Right. So the quick and dirty way would be to mail 100,000 out to registered voters.
Agreed.
Subtracting the 2,000 we've already submitted would be great if the list we gave them already had those people extracted so that they weren't included in it. I don't know if that's possible for us to do.
And I mean, it obviously depends a lot on cost.
Agreed. Cost is
Of
very
course.
important.
Yeah. Now,
And then,
in the data I sent you, it shows how much they charged. They charged state of Michigan to do this.
Can you give us a ballpark, Hal? We don't know.
Yeah, I extrapolated and I said somewhere to do the whole package that they described, 300,000, 400,000, somewhere in there.
Do a mailing?
I can't
This
afford that.
this is tracking everything as well. If we did what Michigan did,
I can't
if
afford
we just have them do a mailing, it's
Yeah.
going to be substantially less, and I'll have to get a quote. We'll have to go through the process with them.
Karen is saying that her staff can handle all requests, all applications coming in to Election Central. It's just the initial mailing that's the issue.
Right, mailing 100,000 requests for a ballot.
I mean, I really think until we have a quote, we can't even consider this.
Right. But is it something we want to pursue?
I mean, it's worth
Because-
looking at, but again, I don't know whether it's cost effective for us to do that.
Yep.
It might be more cost effective if we can see if we can find a, I mean, when you say the interest is zero, is that for working the polls, for working,
We have 0 volunteers right now.
yeah. But that's different than, say, maybe coming in and stuffing envelopes to handle a mailing. We might be able to find more people that way than not. In the same way that we might find more people willing to come in and count ballots than we will having people work at the polls.
Yeah.
But those are numbers that we actually need to get before we can make any final decisions about how many precincts we're opening up, et cetera.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are all important questions. I mean, we could get a cost estimate, but there might be even an outside local company that might be able to do it. One of the printing firms or something that might be able to do it for us. So,
Like
Yeah.
Rainbow.
yeah, like Rainbow, or who we work with all the time and we see regularly. So,
I mean, their proposals got some extremely extensive options to it, most of which I don't think we need. But I think we've got to have better information about what we are asking them to provide and what they're going to charge us to do that before we move anywhere on that.
They didn't, this was a cold call from that company, as you know.
Yeah, I understand that, but
and-
to spend 25 minutes discussing it here without that information doesn't give us, the only thing we can discuss right now is, do we want to pursue it? I don't
Yes.
see any reason not to pursue it. Or I should say not to get that information and get those numbers from them. The question is, what do we want to ask them to do? Is that just the initial mailing or the 4,000
Yes.
things they have in their proposal?
just
And
the
then we
initial
give
mailing is
hard
what
numbers.
Karen is saying just the initial mailing,
Okay.
with any
I'll pass that on.
applications being returned to Election Central.
All
And
right.
it makes sense to get their quote and perhaps
Some local
Rainbow
Rainbow.
and, any others that people have an idea.
Okay. All right, so we'll ask them to quote on the initial aspect of mailing out to all
Mail out only.
registered voters. All right.
Did you want to also contact Rainbow, who we work with regularly, Hal, or is that something you're wanting someone else to do?
It's not something I normally do.
I'll do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll compare numbers and
Right, we'll compare
decide where we
numbers.
go from there.
Great.
He's making a delivery today, so.
And of course, timing would be the other thing. So, we need to look at our timelines a little bit.
Of
How long
course.
it would take them, when the commissioners meet, so we could see if it would be timely.
Do the commissioners have the ability to meet other than the scheduled commissioner meetings?
You'd have to ask the commissioners. I mean, they'd have to call it like everybody else, so.
Right.
So the election board is on board with this idea, is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's worth pursuing, whether or not we choose to do it.
If
gonna
it's
depend on what
affordable.
answers
If
we
it's
get back.
affordable. What I'm
Right.
trying to sense.
All
The
right,
only reason why the commissioners would get involved is if there was a contract to be signed.
Correct.
If this
Right.
is just a bill that we need to pay, cost is very important here, guys. The county's getting a little tight, I'm sure, with money. And if it went over the budget, I'd have to go in front of the council to ask to have money moved
and what
over.
is the budget?
We hadn't been established yet, but we've spent a
Okay.
lot of money so far. And we have to live within our budget.
Okay.
But
Well,
if it's
I brought
affordable,
this up because I really doubt that we can defer people from coming physically to
Yes.
vote
I agree.
without
It's a good
inviting
idea.
them all to do it by mail.
It's all gonna come down to how much it's gonna cost.
Having everyone show up at election central for early voting. If it's a sizable number of people and we're tight on volunteers and we're trying to maintain a particular health environment that's going to be safe for both the workers and the voters, that's going to be a challenge.
It is.
Right.
Totally agree.
Okay. Well, that
This
was
would
the
just
whole,
be another way to promote voting by mail. I mean, it's
Yes.
hopefully one of many ways that we're trying to promote voting by mail.
exactly. All right. Karen, you had some concerns with poll sites.
Yes, so, the state has said that we can actually knock it down to 2. Earlier it was 4
For election day.
for election day. Poll sites. We've come up with a suggestion that we think we can do it with 4 poll sites plus election central. And that we would strategically place them around the county. The one in the south would be Indian Creek. These are all just suggestions, but Indian Creek Fire Station. The east side would be Sherwood Oaks, or it could be Binford. That's either one. If Sherwood Oaks couldn't or wouldn't, at this point they have said yes, but then we'd have the school. North would be Genesis or maybe University Elementary. And then west would be probably the high school. They have probably agreed to do that, but it could also be St. John's. And then central would be election central. It would help us tremendously with the number of people getting involved with having workers. And we feel like we're going to keep people a lot more safe, including our staff. To have 34 poll sites seems astronomical in a lot of areas. One of them that you may not think about is the training of all those people.
Exactly.
The more poll sites we have, the more people to get them, but then also to train them. And how do you train them with that limited amount of spacing and all the logistics with that, with new equipment?
And we're probably not going to agree to do it until the very last minute, frankly, given everything that we know today.
So that's probably where we're standing on, if we can give a suggestion, we would like to see the 4 plus election central, which is 5 poll sites on election day. And with that, they would probably have to be vote centers because we have the ballots, how to deal with all of them. We have the ballots already printed. We can use them to a certain degree. And then also we would have to have the print ability.
Which we do have.
Ballot on demand, which we have that.
Yeah. And then we could train the staff to be able to print ballots if we ran out for some reason somewhere for this one election,
One election only.
for one election only, doing the vote center concept, because we'd have fewer and anybody could vote anywhere, but we have equipment enough for 4, 5 polls to be able to print
Vote center.
Ballots
vote
at each
center
one.
ballots.
And then also too, we thought about the people that would work early voting could easily be incorporated into the poll site locations, which that would mean they already have been trained.
Right.
They're very familiar with that. They know how to print a ballot. They know how to run the e-poll book. They have had their all hands on.
Right.
It would cut down on training. It would cut down enormously if we can get those to help us with that. And I think we could. I think they would. Any thoughts?
Just a couple. I mean, one, obviously schools are a good choice right now because of the fact that they're closed. A lot of schools could even leave that room empty for 2 weeks and then come through and clean and disinfect it to even reduce that information. But I'm happy if the churches are willing to have us do that as well. I mean, I think Sherwood Oaks is a really convenient location for the east side. They've got a huge parking lot. It's a nice site to get in and out of in terms of people being able to vote there. The other choices I think are good as well, as if Indian Creek is happy having us use the fire station. So I think those are good options. The ones that you've chosen, I think, are good options. I think avoiding the fire station in Ellisville, which is a busy fire station, is a good choice simply because, again, they're first responders and we'd be bringing a lot of people into those areas. So again, the high school would be closed, and if they're willing, which they have said, for us to use it for the primary, that's a good option. The other question I have, if we are mailing absentee ballots or absentee ballot applications to everybody, we also need to mail everybody a notice of their precinct change. So being able to do those at the same time would certainly save on postage.
That's a good point.
That's true.
I do know we need to do that, or it's highly recommended. The churches that I mentioned, Genesis and actually St. John's, was another one that could be instead of the high school, but I think the high school's better because we're closer to Steinsville and it's getting more up that direction that would cover more people, more area. But Genesis and Sherwood Oaks has agreed already to do that. And so that's a good thing.
I think they're both convenient polling locations with decent parking. That's a help.
With the schools, I don't have their consent yet. The Edgewood was a yes, but the MCCSC said they'll tell me either Thursday or Friday, and it'll probably be straight across the board. Either it's a yes or it's a no. I know that we can override them, but it sure would be nice if we had essential agreement here that we don't have to override, because we do have to work with them in the future.
Yep.
Right.
And that's being decided. Judy Demuth is meeting with a couple of people.
Right.
Do we have any idea at this point what workers we do have?
We have a number on the books that say they're going to work, but we have not called them back because we don't really know what to tell them. They could have changed their mind since then. We don't have training set up. We don't want to confuse people any more than we have to. So I don't really know, but if we do the 5, I feel very confident that we have those amount of people that we can take from one place to another and get some really good workers also that will do a good job, because our numbers will be much, much lower, and lowering the risk of infection for everyone. So I guess from the board, I'd like to really see that we could get that approval of those 5 sites, and then we can really move forward. It'll give us so much more freedom to know what to do. We will contact those workers, and we will contact those sites again to say, yes, we will have it. And even letting those that we have the sites that at this time we're not going to be using you, we will probably use you in the fall, because we hopefully be back on a regular schedule here, the November election.
To do vote centers on a limited basis for one election only, we still have to go to the state as well
No,
to get their approval, correct?
I think we just need a resolution.
It's called an emergency resolution.
And I think we're having Lee Baker work on a resolution. He said it's an emergency resolution. It'll have start date and end date. It'll be only for this election.
Yeah.
Okay.
I couldn't find any, so I don't think.
Can we have a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
And a second? I'll second it. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Actually, for Zoom meetings, you need to have a roll call vote.
Okay.
I'll do that. So just to clarify, the motion is to do 5 polling sites and each of them being vote centers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
You have to name the poll site.
And we will finalize poll sites, but we're thinking something on the south side, perhaps Indian Creek, something on the east side, perhaps Sherwood Oaks, maybe Benford. North is a Genesis, maybe University Elementary. West is Edgewood High School or a reasonable substitute. and Election Central, and all of them being vote centers. Is that kind of where what the motion is?
I'm thinking
Yes.
that would be the,
Okay.
yes,
So
Yes.
roll call. Hal,
Yes.
Carolyn,
yes.
Nicole.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
So another question, this is obviously for Karen as well. Are we thinking that on primary day, we're going to move the actual ballot counting process to like Showers
Okay,
building?
that's
Hold on.
another thing we'd like to have the election board consider.
Hold on just a second here. That's what
So we know we're going to have 1 week of early voting in person, and we have, a fair number of vote by mail absentee ballots that have returned,
And we hope to have more.
and we'll get more. We hope we get quite a bit more. Why don't you share what we have been told?
Okay. Hi, guys. What we'd like to bring before you now has to be a unanimous decision of the board.
Yeah.
And this is called basically scanning as we go. We want the ability to take the ballots as they come in every day by mail and scan them in. Also doing the same thing in early voting. We scan as we go. That way we don't have to have as many people on election day sitting around in groups of 2 bipartisan teams to open the mail, separate the app from the ballot, and then straightening the ballot. It's very time consuming and it takes a lot of people working. If we could scan as we go for this election, we could still do a quality election and have results by, roughly 6:30 on election night.
And we are told by the the state election division, that if we have a unanimous election board agreement to this plan just for this election, that we can do that to eliminate the bottleneck that would require so many people to be processing absentee ballots, any absentee ballot, in
And it's
person
an
or by
emergency
mail.
Resolution.
It's called an
So-
emergency resolution.
So
Okay.
is the state allowing us to suspend the dead voter law for this particular election?
No, the dead voter law is still out there, but it goes against that law. But if the election board tells us that we can scan early, we can do it, and the IED will not push the issue.
This election only.
This election only.
And the state has told us that we can do this
No,
with a unanimous vote.
they can't. The IED has power over us. However, they also say that it's our election. So whatever y'all decide and tell us to do, then we do it. And they're not going to press the issue for this election.
Because of the worker safety and
But it does violate the dead voter law.
which would then answer Carolyn's question regarding the number of people that would typically have been present at Election Central on election day. This could eliminate that need and allow this to be a voting location on election day for central Monroe County.
Well, the dead voter law has never been one of my favorite statutes. I think we probably need to consult the attorneys before we make this resolution.
If necessary, we can come back on a quick vote on Thursday where we have a scheduled meeting.
Yeah, I don't see that's a problem, but I'd like to let the attorneys weigh in on this before we make that resolution.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And I think we're just moving forward. I want to say, I thank you so much for giving us the 5 poll sites.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It's taken a ton of pressure off of us.
Yep.
It is really what we've needed. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yep.
This will do about the same thing of the level of help, maybe even more. But I understand why you would want to have it checked out. We can wait till Thursday and see what we can do with that.
Okay, and who will transmit this to the legal department?
I will.
Thank you, Tree.
Uh-huh.
They're probably listening in anyway.
And I do want to say, since 2015, the dead voter law, we've only had to pull 3 ballots.
That might change for this election.
It more than likely
Oh my
will. But if we scan as we go, I have less people on election day to worry about spreading the virus to.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just want to make sure that we've crossed all the bells and dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's
Reasonable.
before we make that sort of a decision.
Sure. And I'll get back with you on Thursday.
Okay, that's great.
Awesome.
Any other discussion on the polling sites? Okay. Karen, you had concerns about the travel board?
Okay.
Yes, so the travel board. So telling you that you can have the teleconferencing. And so that part, we just wanted to make sure that was in your summary that, so that means like two travel board members, DNR, can call the person that's on the travel, wanting the travel board to come to their place over the phone, have them vote, and they have to sign off on the ABS 8. Actually, they're signing that envelopes. The travel board would have to sign or say that they were not able to sign it.
Which is also written into the Secretary of State's communication. If the travel board goes and there's like a door or a window between the voter and the travel board, there's specifically says the travel board can sign the ABS 8 saying the voter could not sign.
And healthcare workers can vote for people.
And then, of course, the nursing home, which I think is a really good thing. The nursing home, the workers there can help them do their ballot. We don't need to bring a travel board into them. I don't think it really says a DNR, it just says employees. So I think one employee can go into a room and help them vote, which is interesting. But the travel board.
But it does say either video conferencing or teleconferencing in the Secretary of State's
Order, okay.
order.
Yeah.
So we're assuming therefore telephone
And
is possible.
I would think a lot of the elderly, if they were wanting a travel board, would not know how to do a video conference.
Right.
That would not probably work very well. But we're already getting requests for that. And at this point, I'm trying to encourage them to get a mailed ballot, whether they can have a neighbor or family member come and help them. But, we're going to have people that have missed the May 21st deadline to get a mailed ballot, and perhaps they had a car accident or, but this teleconferencing will definitely help us. We can then do that kind of travel board voting.
And if they insist on face-to-face, then we could still do that, but hopefully on a limited basis.
So we would basically be not exposing our travel board to as many people as possible.
Very limited basis.
In our travel board right now, I'm sure they're all 70 plus,
Yeah.
and some of them I already know have health issues themselves.
So we don't,
I
maybe
really don't know.
we don't want to do.
Yeah, I don't.
Maybe
know if I
we
really
don't
want
wanna
to
do
send
it.
them out. And some of us who are younger, who
So-
aren't that much younger, do we have time to do that?
So you're saying travel board is by phone. That's what you'd like.
I would. I don't
Okay.
really like having the idea of going into these houses with the people who are sending. I mean, there's not many 70-year-olds that aren't on some kind of medication, right? Sorry, but it's kind of the fact. And
I hope to get there, but I've got a few years yet.
coming fast, I know that for myself. But I don't want to be responsible for sending people into a home that we have no idea of what they have done, how they take this seriously. Not everybody takes it seriously. So they just sit down and put their hand on the sofa, and you know the story, how it can go. So I would like,
So that's what you're, that makes sense.
I would like a limited, very limited, if we could do the telephone balloting that way, voting that way, then why don't we just leave it that way?
Is
And
this, Karen, is this something we need a resolution on, or is this included in the state's order and
And don't-
we can just say
I
that's
think
the way
it-
we're gonna do it?
I think if you're just an agreement that you guys understand this is what we want to do and what I think is the best, I think we're good because it is in,
It's in there.
yeah. I can't imagine why we would have to send someone out if we can do it over the phone.
Are we working with nursing homes in terms of, say, maybe them printing out ballot applications for their residents who want them? That sort of thing? Is that something we can promote?
We have already sent them a packet with absentee, both registration and the absentee ballot request form. We've been getting some of them back. We always have done that though.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've talked to a number of the people there. And of course, if they run out of forms, they're more than welcome to print more, but we also will send them more, but usually they just print more. The nursing home situation, that's high risk for anybody going in.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
most of them
bad.
are not allowing people in at all. And I
Right.
mean, if you look at the situation that happened in New Jersey, for example, they don't want people coming in and
Right.
you don't really want to be there.
Totally understandable. So I think we should absolutely stay out of there for our health, for their health, and we don't need to do it. Send it to us in the mail.
So you're looking for just a resolution?
Probably just an
FYI.
acknowledgement that this is what we're gonna do, no travel board into
In
the
person.
homes, that we'll do it all teleconferencing or video conferencing.
I would say, if at all possible, that's the way we should go.
Okay. And I will even try harder at the beginning to get them just to have a mail ballot. You know, a lot of times they have a family or a friend that does come in and help them. And all they need to do is, if they need assistance, that's the easiest way. And I think it gives them more confidence that, you know, they're having that ballot marked in their presence. So we'll encourage that direction.
Yeah, the new law has greatly loosened up who can attest to that ballot signing, correct?
Yes. Kind of shocking, but yeah.
Nicole, what's your buy-in on this?
You have my buy-in for this.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm good too.
Great.
What kind of things are we doing to promote people voting by mail? I know it's been in the
That's-
paper. Thank you, Ernest and Dave, for getting those information out.
Thank you very much.
What else can we do to try to help encourage people both to not only vote by mail, but to do it early? So get those applications in now and get their ballots back to us as soon as possible.
So that's an excellent question, Ms. Carolyn. Last week, I reached out to 5 radio stations offering to do an over-the-telephone interview. I reached out to the Democratic Party chair for assistance. I sent a letter to the editor, and Ernest Rollins was kind enough to respond today regarding that. I think it's anticipated to come out this week. So we've done some things. We have some more to do. My hope is that weekly we are making significant attempts to continue. It's not about necessarily getting the word out as much as keeping the word out. And so great strides have been made in that direction. But certainly anybody who is hearing this, who can watch this, who can offer some more suggestions, we'd be happy to have those.
One of the things that I did last week, so I had a woman contact me about how to deal with her absentee by mail ballot request. And we ended up talking on the phone for a while because it was a situation where it was easier to just answer her questions that way. And she'd give me her phone number. And she actually then sent all the information that I sent her out to her homeowners association, or actually it was a neighborhood association group. I don't know if there's a list of HOAs and so forth out there, but that's might be another good way to circulate this information to residents.
Yeah, that's a great idea. The city does maintain a list of the community groups and neighborhood groups.
Yeah, so maybe contacting them and asking them to just email out the correct information would be helpful. We can put together just a short email that has all of this information on it. The correct information about where to email the ballots, etc., is always nice. I've probably had to forward about 20 or 30 of them on to the election office, which I'm happy to do. But unfortunately, the application at the bottom says to get it to the election board. And when people Google the election board, what they get is our information as opposed to what they can get at the website. And the best website to look at is, of course, the Monroe County Voters.us website, which has all this information on it. But, just being able to get all the correct information out, there's a lot of stuff going around. We'd like it to be correct.
My understanding also was that the League of Women Voters were going to make an initiative to get the word out as well.
Yeah, certainly all those civic groups, maybe contact Rotary.
I did, I contacted all of them.
All of those guys would be also good sources to have send out to their memberships. And the Chamber of Commerce, I think, had also said they were going to do something.
Right. Mary Morgan with the Chamber of Commerce has emailed everyone that's on her contact list, and that's thousands of people.
And someone is kind enough to have said in the chat that the League of Women Voters sent an email to 300 groups on the public library's list of civic groups. So thank you to the League of Women Voters. We appreciate that incredibly much.
Do you anticipate some radio interviews or newspaper interviews so that we can keep this word out in public on a regular, ongoing basis?
So what I received, one radio station lost their tower in the storm last week, and they asked me to call back this week. I am going to make follow-up calls to try and do this weekly. That is the best we can do, is to keep offering. I haven't gotten any calls back.
I just hope it's not a one-time thing. And the newspapers, the article in the HT was great. I have to admit, I haven't seen any others in the community, but that doesn't mean there hasn't been additional. It was very visible. It was informative. And I would love to see that on a more regular basis, just to reinforce the value of voting by mail for safety, if at all possible.
I think it would be possible for Nicole to tape some PSAs that could be run on radio stations. I'm pretty sure that most of them would be willing to do that. Those would run on a more regular basis than, say, an interview. This would be like a 20 or 30-second slot, but it would work well for that.
It would be awesome.
And one response I did receive said that they were going to take my letter to the editor and turn it into a PSA for one radio station. And I want to be very clear that in my request, I have said regular, meaning weekly, voter education contact.
Every other day. Different drive times, different times of day.
Yeah, most of those stations will run those PSAs several times a day.
Yeah, that would be awesome if that would be possible. Our PSAs, I used to write those years ago. Are they typically, do we have an option of Nicole speaking in the PSA, or is it announcers reading? What is typical these days, Carolyn?
I think it would depend on the station that you're looking at. I
Okay.
mean, WFHB is on a lockdown, so it would be done by our news department.
But it would be
we could-
recorded by the
could
news
call in and
department?
record it.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I can get Nicole the number, the person that she needs to contact about doing that.
So it was actually WFHB who said that they would turn the statement into a public service announcement. I anticipate hearing something from them,
Okay.
but they do have the information.
That would
And
be great.
I would also like to thank Dave Askins at the Beacon. I know he's put this out as well and
Numerous
on
times.
our line to make sure that he gets this information right, and we'll continue to work with that, I'm sure.
Great, David, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, David. Okay, any more discussions on this? All right, last item. This is the COVID-19 guidance for election personnel. And it is a required read. I believe I included it attached to the back of the minutes from the IEC. It's the second half of that package. So if anyone didn't get a copy and they would like to see it, I'll make it available to you. Just send me a note, halturner12@gmail. But we are going to be subjected to mandatory training for this. And that's something that we really should take to heart, because we want safety to be number one in this election.
Exactly.
All right. Are there any other issues to be brought before? Yes, Karen.
I'd like to clarify one thing too, because this has come up about the application. We have it online now on the application to get a ballot mailed to you. And it's a fill in the blank one, so you may get questions about that, but it does not allow you to sign it. You cannot put an electronic signature on there at this time. And so what the person has to do is print it out, sign it, and then they are allowed to email it to election@co.monroe.in.us. A lot of people think it should be a fill in the blank, for your signature. That's a state law. We can't change it. It could be changed. Anything is possible, in the future, but even for this election. But at this point, it has to be a signature on that application, pen on paper, and then still it can be scanned in to the email or fax to me.
Okay.
So there's a little confusion, and that's just the way it is. And I've checked it every direction I can to be sure that's correct, and it's correct.
All right. Are there any other comments?
Just want to go over some important dates for everybody. So again, a reminder to candidates that the reporting times changed because the primary changed. So Friday, May 8th is the end of the pre-primary campaign finance reporting period, and their deadline for filing their pre-primary campaign CFA 4s is May 15th now. The primary supplemental large contribution reporting period runs from May 9th to the primary. And also, again, just to remind everybody, voter registration for this primary now ends on May 4th. Early voting will be May 26th to June 1st. The primary will be on June 2nd. And the 21st is the deadline for getting your ballot application in. A reminder that if you do it by email, that's at 11:59, but if you want to get it to the office, you're going to have it in the mail that day. So again, getting these things in sooner than later will help us both in terms of processing all the requests. Because if we get 20,000 requests on May 20th, they're not going to get their ballots. And just to do it early and get it done.
Thank you, Carol. It's great to have people on board who are experienced and on the ball. Any other comments or questions from the board? Okay, let me open it up to anyone from the public. Do you have any questions or comments? I'm not hearing anybody.
Remember, you have to unmute yourself if you want to make a comment, or you can put it in the chat, but doesn't seem to be any public comment.
Okay. Then barring any comments from the public, I will recess the meeting pending additional information, which we'll bring forward on Thursday.
So are we going to Zoom again on Thursday then?
Would you like to meet in person?
I'm happy to meet in person also. I know that's what we have set up.
That had been my preference as well.
Okay,
So we'll meet at Election Central at 1 o'clock on Thursday. Is that correct?
Yes.
okay,
Zoom meeting.
very good.
I just said in person.
In person.
And that meeting has already been noticed, so we're good.
Yes,
We'll see you Thursday.
see you all Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you, Hal.